Hi, I'm Sean.
I'm Renee.
This is Hope in Crisis, a new podcast series about rights and democracy and how technology can enable or disable it.
Listen to Hope in Crisis on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to your podcast. Right, so we have a guest with us today. It's the first attempt for all of us. Yeah, we've never had any guest with us at this podcast. It's always the two of us talking. So we're really happy to have some new insight, new stimulation.
Yeah, so Hsiao A, thank you for coming.
Sure. Hi everybody. I'm very excited to be here.
He's already very excited.
Me too.
So we looked a lot of kind of your past, what you've worked on.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could just kind of tell us a little bit about you, like tell us your story.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated because the winding road that I took.
We have time.
Okay. Yeah, so I was born and grew up in Taiwan. So when I was 17 in high school, I decided to study abroad in the U.S. So I by myself. So I went to the U.S. and studied in high school, and then got into UCLA, studied physics and mathematics, and then...
Can I slow you down for a second?
Sure.
So what made you want to go to the U.S.?
Yeah.
And what you didn't like about Taiwan's education?
That's where the long story comes in, right? So, yeah, number one, I really wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be a physicist. But back then in Taiwan, probably even now...
Did you know you wanted to be a scientist from a young age, or...?
Yeah, because when I just got into high school, I got really interested in physics. But the thing is, I couldn't get a good grade in physics in Taiwan, right? So my physics grade was terrible. But I have strong confidence in myself, right? I know this is what I want to do. I know I can do well. So it's not my problem. So it's got to be the system's problem, right? So I looked into, physics education.
That's a cool attitude.
There you go. Yeah. So
where did you get that mindset and confidence?
Because I like solve problems. I like solving problems, right? So, and also the education here is just make you cram, formulas. There's nothing intuitive about, physics. They don't teach you any reasoning and logic behind. Just make you memorize tons and tons of formula and problem solving patterns, right? So I knew that's not what I was into, and By luck, I had a best friend who went to U.S. before me, a year before me, and I visited him during the summer vacation, right? So that's why I got to see, a different environment, different people, different educational systems and materials.
Where in the U.S. was he?
He was in Seattle.
You went to Seattle?
Yeah. So that's when I first, and also in...
Was this your first time?
Very first time, yes.
What was that like?
It's eye-opening because in high school I got into rock music. So I went to Stafuzong, right? So we have this guitar club, Jita. So it's very famous. Our school's got the best musicians. For example, Wu Yue Mayday stem from our school. So I was one of the guitar players. I play hard rock, and going to US is like the Mecca.
Oh, and Seattle, that was the Mecca, right?
Exactly. I didn't know any of that. I just know this is a place, wow, you have tons of guitar stores.
Did you know about Nirvana? Was that the time where this kind of rock? Or
I was into Nirvana or Ozzy Osbourne, that kind of music. So I went.
But you didn't choose Seattle. You chose LA.
Because my friend went to Seattle before, so I visited him. But then when I got back to Taiwan, I thought, that's where I have to go. I have to go there. So then, long story short, I was in a boarding school in Vermont. Well, don't ask me why.
So from high school to a boarding school.
Yeah. From high school to a boarding school in Vermont, and then college in LA. So I was all over the place. But then I finally got to study physics and also mathematics. And then and after college, I still very interested. So I applied to a PhD program. I got into Stony Brook on Long Island, New York. So that's all. Yeah, right. So I spent 5 years there and almost finished my degree, but a lot of things happens, financial crash and all that. So I ended up didn't just get my degree. So I passed my dissertation, but I didn't finish the thesis. all that jazz. So I left school and then I went into kind of like financial markets, do some quant stuff, and then finally settled down on software engineering, and then startups, and got into NGOs with my project on Taiwan National Treasure, where we go into the U.S. National Archives and help digitize the documents related to Taiwan's past. And that project really got me to the front page of Taiwanese media, right? So I got featured in the headlines of Liberty Times back in 2017.
Can you explain what is this project?
Right. So the project is it's an online archive of all the Taiwanese, documents, unclassified, declassified documents from the U.S. National Archives in Washington, D.C. So if you understand the Taiwan's past, the U.S. and Taiwan or Republic of China has a very long and complicated history, right? So they have a lot of documents sending back and forth, dating back to 1880. So that's when the U.S. first had a consulate in Taiwan, back when Taiwan was a colony of Japan. So once you have a consulate or an embassy, then you have these documents back and forth with the Washington, D.C., right? So they archived that. And after 30 years, they declassified that. So everybody get to go in the archive and see, and then take pictures and print it and take it away, take it to your home.
Just to make sure I'm following. So these were American archives.
Yes.
So all English.
Yes.
And you as a Taiwanese person, you were interested, but how did you get interested in this? Like, what were you trying to do?
Yeah, because it's
how did you even know about it?
Yeah, that's the story, right? So there's one scholar from Taiwan. He was contracted to go into archive and then find some, do some research. And then he, when he was having dinner with some of the local Taiwanese students, he told us about the story about, do you know there's millions of Taiwanese documents in the U.S. archive? Nobody knew about that. So we were instantly very interested because like, what is in there? I mean, is it something that we don't know? Is it some story that we don't know? So I immediately organized a group and then go in there and then just go through the documents. And they are amazing. I mean, they talk about issues from a perspective that the Taiwanese people have never known before. Because the history we got from our schools are taught by, governments that came from China. So they taught us, especially me, my generation, the history lessons I learned is Chinese history. Mm-hmm. I was taught I was a descendant of Chinese immigrants, and we have 5,000 years of history and so on and so forth. But from the archives perspective, we see that the U.S. is actually looking at Taiwan in a totally different perspective.
What was the most surprising part you've seen?
Yeah, we see that, for example, very surprising part is when, for example, just take the example of when the U.S. severing diplomatic relations with Taiwan back in 1979. So I get to see the documents documenting all that chaos, right? So the Deputy Secretary of State visiting Taiwan, and his car got, mobbed. There's a mob that's throwing eggs on his car, and then so they are documenting what there's a chaos scene in Taiwan. Everybody was panicking and all that, and they document that why the negotiations between the ROC officials and the U.S. officials about breaking off, right? And it's just amazing to see the very firsthand, raw materials documenting all this that we were never taught. So once when we were kids, we were taught that the U.S. was, is cheating behind our backs.
Abandoned
Taiwan, right? So they established relationship.
I don't know
the
this
world
history at all.
left us.
Yeah. So, but it's not like that, right? So they have a.
There were struggles, and then there was tension, but it was all left unsaid in textbooks.
Yeah. So the perspective is very fresh, and then so that's why I know, there's a gold mine here.
Wait, can I just dig into this for a second? Because I don't know this stuff.
Okay.
So from a Taiwanese perspective, like what are you taught that happened?
Oh, you mean in schools?
Well, like the relationship between America and Taiwan.
Yeah.
Like what happened during that time period?
Well,
You can tell him your version because
I'd love to hear what
I
you think
majored
too.
in political science, so I was given more information about this.
And maybe I'm older, so my education was a bit more traditional. So just take example of the UN, the ROC exiting UN. We were told that because UN was allowing the People's Republic of China to join, and then our president, Chiang Kai-shek, said 汉贼不两立, which means we are not going to coexist with the rebels. So we left. It's like very righteous, right tone, right? But then if you go look at the archives, you know that actually the UN or the US was offering Taiwan to exist as a country called Taiwan. But the KMT government, the Chinese coming from China, they don't want to exist as Taiwan. They want to be called as Republic of China. So they refuse to continue their existence as Taiwan. They have to fight to be the China, the right China, the only China. So that's why when the People's Republic of China come onto the world scene, Taiwan or ROC will just, get less and less pushed to the corners. And then you see today there's a one China policy and all that crap. We have to live with Chinese Taipei and all that. So that's all part of the history. And you don't get to see that viewpoint if you don't go into the archive and look at those first-hand documents.
That's fascinating.
Exactly.
And then what did you learn?
I have to fill in some background and context. So before 1949, there were two governments in China. One is KMT, Kuomintang, the Chinese Nationalist Party, and then the other one is the Chinese Communist Party. They both
what we now call PRC, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But at that time, both of them think that they are the right government for the entire China.
Okay.
So even though KMT lost the civil war and came to Taiwan, they still think that they own China. So I think when I was very, very young, or people like 5 years older than me, in their elementary school textbooks, the map for this country covers the entire China.
Oh.
Right. Right. So that is why KMT and Communist Party both think that they are the right and only representative of the entire China. And that is why when the United Nations was considering getting PRC on board, Chiang Kai-shek was so angry. Because I think that if I am here speaking on behalf of the entire China, then who is he? That's why he said 汉贼不两立. It means that we are the right and we are the authentic representation of China, and they're not. So if you're considering his existence, then you're just overruling our legitimacy. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yes, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah. So
like, what were these documents like? Were they paper? Were they on microfiche? Were they digitalized already?
I mean, all over the place, right? There are millions of paper, just letters, and then official documents, and then even ledgers, all that. And there's microfilms as well. So so we just organized teams, and I'm a software engineer, so I wrote programs so our volunteers can download an app on their phones. So they just pull it up and then start taking pictures, and then our app would automatically send it to our archives and digitize it. So
is this stuff like OCR'd now? Like, have you done
it's all
natural language processing on it? Like, is this like
It's
indexable now? It's
searchable?
searchable?
Yes, it's all that. So we OCR did, we natural language process, we even send it through Google Translation, and it's all on our archive. But also it's indexed, it's searchable. So it's if anyone interested can visit nationaltreasure.tw. So that's it's been a 4 years old project right now. So still ongoing. But because of pandemic, the archives closed. All federal buildings closed right now. So we don't get to keep doing our work. But
when you say it's still ongoing, you mean you're still going through these documents?
We're still going through. We have about 200,000 documents archived right now. But the goal is to get to about 50 million.
There's that many.
Yes, at least. So we are long way from done, but it's ongoing.
Sorry, another dumb question. So like the U.S. just lets you guys take these documents?
Yeah,
It's open source.
It's
right?
open. It's
Really?
open.
It's open data.
Yeah, it's open domain. So that means that it's open, and then if you take a picture of it, you own the copyright. So it's yours. You can write books on it. You can publish articles on it.
Wow.
And we, as an open source project, we decided to open source it so everybody can visit our archives and just use our material. And in fact, some author actually used our material to write a book on this so-called 西罗大桥, so the 西罗 Bridge in Yunlin. So she's actually a daughter of the man who actually was responsible to build the bridge. And then and because the bridge was financially sponsored by the U.S. government back then when the Taiwan is receiving a lot of U.S. financial aids. So there's a lot of documents documenting the engineering, the planning, and the building of the bridge. So she from our archives found a lot of source material and wrote a book on the Shiro Bridge. So we're pretty happy about it.
How many people were involved with this archive process?
The core team is about five people. So,
And you're just volunteers, or?
We actually found a 501c3 organization in the U.S., so we received donations. But yeah.
Who was donating?
A lot of Taiwanese Americans,
Yeah.
especially the older generation Taiwanese Americans. Everybody's pretty inspired by this project. And as I said, when we started to do this, we actually got featured on the front page. It's above the fold front page of Liberty Times in 2017, July 2017. So we received a lot of attention, and we also got sponsored by GovZero. So it's a G0V, it's an organization in Taiwan about civic technologies. But it was 4 years ago. Right now, it's we're still ongoing, but we're not that hardly supported right now. But of course,
Is there any way to scale up and to speed up the digitalizing of everything?
yeah, I mean, but it requires a lot of resources, right? Because the thing is, there's no magic. We have to organize volunteers to go in there and then take each picture of each document by hand. So it's takes a lot of money and time. So actually, there are calls, by a lot of people that the government should step in and support us. And of course, we are looking at ways to collaborate with the government right now. But anytime you involve the government, it's very lengthy and complex process. So we still, just. But anyway, because of the pandemic, the archive is closed, so everything's on hold right now.
So just so I get kind of the timing of this right, so you already left your graduate studies.
Right.
And you were sort of dabbling in, hey, maybe I should go work for Wall Street.
Yeah.
Right? And then were you working at Wall Street then, or?
No, Wall Street is just a brief stint. So I worked on some quant job for like very brief amount of time, but then I got into software engineering. So I was working on building startups, like 5-team startups, 20, 40 teams, so very small startups. That's why I cut my teeth with my software skills, right? So, but then I got involved with this National Treasure project. And after I got featured on the front page, I realized I need to devote myself full time, right? Because
I see.
it's a lot of pressure. So I quit my day job and then got into this full time.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's 2017. But then 2018, because all the attention I received. So in 2018, people in Taiwan start, recruiting me to come back and then to run in the local elections. So that's why I decided that I come back and then go through the campaign of 2018 of City Council in Taipei, in Neihu and Nangang. So I didn't win. I lost by about 3,000 votes. But still, it's a very educational experience. I learned a lot about local politics and politics in general. So and that's where I am today. So I'm right now, I can say I'm at the intersection of politics and technology in Taiwan. So on one hand, I help to push more policies on technology. For example, like open parliament and open council, like in local open council policies, and also I still am running my own startup right now. So, so a lot of things I'm juggling.
Last time we talked about open data and open government, and then people didn't believe, our overseas audience didn't believe that there can be an organization like GovZero in Taiwan, that we can be so open. And then you actually set up GovZero New York. Is it a New York branch for the entire GovZero organization? Or?
Yeah. So it's a New York chapter, but if you look into the GovZero structure, you see that they are decentralized. So I can't say that it's a formal chapter, but it's just that, because GovZero is so decentralized, we just set up an organization and call ourselves GovZero New York. But we were, championing the ideology of, open sourcing, civic participations, and open data. So and we hold hackathons regularly. So that's where I got involved with civic participation, got involved with organizing. So that's where I am today.
So were you trying to bring the Taiwan sort of methodology, the Taiwan technologies into the US, or were you trying to recruit Americans for Taiwan? Like, what were you thinking there?
Actually, both. Yeah, right. Because I remember in 2016, a lot of engineers in New York and even all over the U.S. were organizing because, if you're familiar with, there's a resistance movement,
The Occupy Wall Street stuff.
No, it was after that. So it was
after Trump.
After Trump, exactly. I didn't want to be quite so explicit.
That's okay.
But yeah, a lot of people are
Nobody
organizing.
can censor us.
Yeah. I remember vividly that it was quite when the Muslim ban came in. A lot of people are at the airport being detained and all that. So a lot of people organized to help them. So I joined the movement and then trying to bring some of GovZero, mindset and methodology, just like you said, in that movement. And on the other hand, of course, I also organized for Taiwanese issues, right? So, for example, like UN for Taiwan, and then Keep Taiwan Free, and all these marches. We're doing quite a lot of. It's like when Taiwan is overseas, that's something you just gotta do, right?
Do you think people support that? Do people in New York support organizations like GovZero or concept of open data, open government?
Yeah, actually, GovZero has gotten quite a bit of a name for itself, right? Because there's a very well-known graph. If you organize the GitHub contributions on civic tech societies, you see the commits roughly split into three groups, right? There's open society, open society that's in Europe, and there's a Code for America that's in the US, and in Asia there's GovZero, three major groups. So we're really proud to be,
I didn't know GovZero was that big.
Yeah, it was one of the three top three. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So Taiwan is so small, but we actually generated so much energy that we can rival, Europe and America. And over the years I've been thinking about this because in Taiwan there's just an open culture.
Yeah.
And if you put it another way, you just say we don't respect intellectual rights, right? We like to share. Like to share our videos, share our code. Yeah, so if you guys
you first.
Yeah. You guys visit PTT? It's back when I was a student.
I do, but do people copy anything there?
No, I'm just gonna say there's a board there that's shared board.
Yes.
It was banned.
Everything's open.
Yeah, everything people just share. I have a good video, we share. We have a movie clip, we share. So Taiwan has a kind of open culture. So that's why GovZero borrows the energy from, right? Because we don't like to be we don't like to promote ourselves. We just like to be part of a big group, and you can see that during the pandemic, right? Taiwan is really stuck together. So I think this is something that shows.
Do you think there's any other models that Taiwan does really, really well and is worth people in the United States or other countries to take a look at?
Yeah, I mean, right. It's just back to the open data, but sometimes all these civic, collaborations do not translate into, governmental policies, right? So in government, this is still very conservative, and even though our open government has been well known throughout the world thanks to Audrey Tang, right? Because she's been traveling and promoting Taiwan's accomplishment on this. But still, working in this area, we still have a lot of ways to go. Because for example, the governmental employees right now, they still don't have a good concept of open data, right? Mm-hmm. If you ask them to open something, they will just, give you a file and then not caring about whether it's machine readable and all that good stuff. So we're not quite there. But so in this respect, when we look into the U.S. or even the Europe, say Estonia and all that, we can see that there's still a lot of ways to go in terms of open data and open government. So that's something I'm actively working on, for example, in Open Parliament right now. Yes.
Yeah, can you explain? You've used this twice now. So what is Open Parliament?
Right.
What problems are you guys trying to solve?
Yeah, Open Parliament is part of the open government. So open government means you open your data and you promote participation from people, from citizens, and if you put that scene from the government to the parliament, then there will be open parliament, right? So we need to open the parliamentary data, for example, the bill process, how bills becomes laws, and then how about the budgets, and then how each legislator use their budgets and all that. So although our parliament right now is quite transparent, you can turn on the TV and see the live streaming of parliamentary sessions, but still a lot of areas that we still need to, for example, when the legislators are voting on bills, you can see on the TV there's the counts, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no way I can call an API and get accounts from my app if I need to make an app for that, right? So it's still not that open, and we need to push it.
I was going to ask you, so like these national archives in the US, you have these millions and millions of documents, and they could say, yeah, this is open, come get them.
Right.
But it's not accessible. Right. And so what you're really trying to get towards, right, is how do you make government more accessible, yes?
Right, yeah. So being accessible, being open, and then being transparent, it's all the the core tenets of open government and open parliament. So I'm a active member in Open Parliament as well as Open Government. So that's something that we're trying to make sure that the Taiwanese government is moving toward is they, number one, they understand open data and understand, for example, the personal data privacy. So right now, the data protection laws in Taiwan is pretty lacking. It's nothing compared to the Europe or even the US. So we're trying to go to that direction and make sure that, because when you have a very, a government that is in touch with the tech community in terms of being open data and being wise in using technologies, then the startups, we will have a good environment, right? Because if the government, for example, the government is pushing out EIDs, so the electronic IDs, and if they make the ID readers open source, then every startup in Taiwan would be able to interface with the ID system, and all the app the way we build, we can skip the authentication process, just use the government's EID. So it's something that will be,
Yeah. I know it sounds amazing, but is it a good thing? Because we talk a lot about privacy and security too. I'm just not sure if it's a good idea to have our ID or our EID. Well, exactly what does our ID card do? It's really important. It contains a lot of our personal information, right? Then why would I want everyone to be able to read it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's actually $1 million question surrounding the EID controversy right now, right? So how do you protect people's privacies while offering the convenience of all the digital features of a modern world? So if we look into the example set by Estonia, so they are the very advanced digital government in the world. And I actually just visited there last year, and I actually wrote up some of my thoughts in an article published on the Reporter. So how they do this is they have a system called X-Road that is extremely secure, and then they're able you to use your EID to get data. For example, you go to a bank, you want to apply for a loan. You just plug in your EID, and then the bank was able to interface through X-Road with all governmental agencies and get your data. So you don't have to fill in all the forms, right? And also it's extremely secure because they have a system that monitors such data exchanges so that you can actually check against your record and you can see that who is having access to your data on what date. So actually, if somebody is looking at your data without your consent, you actually be able to pinpoint the date and time and actually prosecute them. There are laws that actually prosecute people for such data breaches. So this infrastructure or the legal foundations are what allows a government to move toward a digital governance system, right? So this is something very advanced, and that is something that I've been advocating Taiwan to actually embark on. So it's something that's very dear to my heart, yes.
For those who don't know, Estonia has e-residency. And we actually have 2 Estonian residents here with us today.
Wow. Great, yes. Once you apply to be a Estonian e-resident, you can actually open a startup in Estonia. Why in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
Before the show, I asked him why he wanted Estonian e-residency, and then he said it's fun. But
it's just cool.
Now that after listening to this, well, we think if it's a great idea, everyone should get it, right? But I think in Taiwan, Congress people and government officials should get a Estonia e-residency first. So they have this EID, and then they have their experience, and then they would know how to access and use their data and how to protect their data so that they can use this, they can leverage that experience and build Taiwan's digital ID system.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Definitely should more of the higher up people should actually go out of the Taiwanese bubble and see what everybody's doing, right? Yeah, yes, that's a great suggestion. I'll make sure I tell them.
Cool. What do you think needs to change with the foundation law, I guess, of Taiwan for something like this to happen? Like, as an outsider, as an American, I always felt Taiwan had a huge chance of being something like an Estonia.
Right. Yeah. I mean, comparing in the U.S., we have something going for us is that we have this system that everybody is registered in the government ledgers, right? The 户籍. So everybody is required to have a 户籍.
Household registration.
Yes, exactly. Household registration.
Can you explain a little bit more about that? Like, I didn't even know about this until a couple years ago, and it was so shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's leftover from the Japanese colonial times, right? Because in Japan, they also have the household registration. You have to register every member of your household with the government. So government knows exactly who lives where and then how many children you have. And then so that, number one, they can give you subsidies without you applying for it, right? They know you have a newborn, they give you subsidies. And you have an elderly at home, they send social workers to check on them. And also, everybody is automatically registered to vote. So we have a very high turnout and very high voting population. But on the flip side of that, I mean, people is not going to feel comfortable that every member of my household is known by the government. So there's some privacy issues there, but it is what it is with the household registration system. Yeah, but with that, it's easy to go into the Estonia model. Is that then everybody's got an ID card because you are registered, so you have an ID card. So it's a unique identification number. And with that, every software engineer knows that if everybody got a unique identification number, then it's very easy to actually, track people, connect data and then share the data. And so that's we have the fundamentals in place. It's just that compared with Estonian, Taiwanese people do not trust our governments that much. So
why do you think Estonians trust their government?
Exactly, right? Because, so I was there last year, and they were all, boasting about how good, their EID, the e-system, the e-governance system, how great they are. And don't get me wrong, they are great. But one question that lingers in my mind is that how come you guys just trust the government? How come you just trust the system and then give the government everything?
I think the same thing about Taiwan. Like, why do you guys trust your government? Like,
So there's a spectrum. On the right hand is Estonia, and then on the left,
America.
Yes, you guys are.
I was gonna say someone else, but yeah.
We have guns. We have there's no way.
Drugs.
Exactly. Yeah, that's because of history, right? I mean, but yeah, because you have a history of revolutions, so you guys naturally tend to, not trust the government.
Yeah.
And we have a history of being ruled by authoritarian regimes, early days of KMT and all that. So we tend to not trust the government. But and in Estonia, the story I heard is that because they got independent from Russia, and then the early days, the people,
Work together.
Yeah, work together, and they actually work pretty well
sense
together.
of community.
Yeah. Yes. So that's why they tend to trust the government, right? And also they know how to find the solutions, because when they just got independent, they have to build a nation, right? They have to build a national system, registry, and all that. But they were so poor. They didn't have money to buy, the IBM, the most advanced systems currently available, right? So they just turned to the technology at hand, which in 1990s is the internet. So they just say, okay, we're just going to build this ourselves. And then 20 years later, they are the most advanced e-governance country in the world. So, I mean, kudos to them, but this is something that we can really learn something from. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were talking about laws a few minutes ago, and then you said that Taiwan is not so good, but I'm reading and translating a book about ethics recently, and then I think there's a huge problem with the U.S. politics or U.S. government, and that's lobbyists. I think I have no idea why people tolerate lobbyists, because their only purpose is to make sure that interest groups can keep their interests vested, and obviously that's against public good. So when it comes to laws, I really think Taiwan is far ahead from other countries. I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I think it may be more difficult for the United States to have open parliament, open Congress, or open government, because all of the lobbyists are working under the table with Congress people and politicians.
Does Taiwan have lobbying?
That's a really great question and observation, right? Because actually in U.S. the lobbyists law or law regulating lobbyists are actually pretty advanced. So you have to register as a lobbyist, and then there's a sort of regulation you have to live by. In Taiwan, there's no such law. There's one law, but nobody cares about it. Nobody's registered as a lobbyist, but they still lobby anyway, because actually lobbying is not going to go away, and it's not all bad, right? Because if you are a group that's advocating for fighting against violence against women, right? You're gonna lobby for some laws that protect women, and that's lobbying. So there may be some companies, tobacco companies or car companies, that lobby the government to make some regulation, but also there's some NGOs lobbying the government to make Taiwan more just and then more better. So not all lobbyings are equal and are equally bad, but so that's why you have to have a law that regulates lobbying. You have to make sure lobbyists register. You have to make sure the gift they give to the congressmen or legislators, they are registered. So Taiwan's in that respect is pretty lacking. It lags behind U.S. for miles. So but you are right. I mean, even with the advanced laws like the U.S. has. Still, some lobbies still go on the table and then do something, very bad. But that is just not going to be avoided. So there are bad apples in any country. So yeah,
that's kind of why you want to open the parliament. Is exactly. If you have that opened, that black box is opened, then people can figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah, you hit that right out of the park right there. So exactly, it's because the open parliament is where to make parliaments more transparent, right? So. And then make sure people, can pay more attention and be more accessible to citizens. Yes.
So can you speak to like where Taiwan is in this open parliament process? Like if you say, okay, the beginning is it's completely closed, it's a black box. And then the other side is you have APIs that anybody can use. Like,
I mean,
where is Taiwan right now?
I think we are a little bit more than the middle, right? Because Taiwan parliament's been, it's actually by any standards pretty open already if you compare to Mongolia or Korea's government.
What if you compare it to U.S., like Congress or the Senate?
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. is not is actually depending on which aspect you compare. But there's in the open parliament, there's an organization that's called Open Parliament e-network, right? So if they actually give scores for each parliament, right? So they rate each parliament by their openness. And Taiwan is actually quite advanced. Yeah, it's just some areas that we still need to improve on, right? For example, like the open APIs. So in this open parliament process, we actually, make the parliament open a GitHub account.
Really?
Yes. So stay tuned for that. Taiwan parliament is going to have a GitHub account.
What are they going to put there?
We will require them to actually open source from time to time some codes that does not have security risk. So maybe some open portal codes. Yeah. So it's in the
and then they'll accept pull requests or
yeah. So it's gonna be fun. So this is something that we're working on. So this is the whole open parliament process is working on, right? So we have this so-called MSF. So it's a stakeholder forum. So that's all the people from the NGOs, from parliament, legislators, legislative assistants, and people like me, engineers, come in, and then we sit down and have meetings every 2 weeks, and then figure out what the top parliament needs to be more open. So one of the achievement would be a GitHub account. Yeah.
That reminds me of something. So in Taiwan, we don't have lobbyists, but politicians are allowed to take donations, to take cash money from different organizations, and then that's open. So you'll be able to go to a website and find out which Congress people received donations from what company. And then a few years ago, when people were really concerned with food security, and then they found out that, one big food company that provided polluted food and raw material donated to these and these and these Congress people. And what Taiwanese people did was really, really lovely and awesome. People just stopped buying products from those companies. They're hoping to, cost their revenues or try to harm them by using the market, the free market. So that's something we can think about. So lobbyists may be necessary, and then you cannot avoid politicians taking money from interest groups. But as individuals, even though you don't trust the government or you don't trust the system, there's still something you can do.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point.
This idea of being able to not trust but verify. This is what's good about Bitcoin. That's the purpose of Bitcoin, right? Is you don't have to trust the bank. You can verify that what they say is happening is happening. So this is your approach to government seems really interesting. You're trying to get in there so people can verify.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you brought up Bitcoins, because when I ran my campaign, I'm the very first candidate who accepted, cryptocurrency as donations.
How come you want to? Yeah. I was going to say how much. I wanted to.
Go ahead.
Sure, how much is a good question.
How much? Very, very little. Because it's just about equivalent of 20,000 Taiwan dollars. Yeah, so it's
not
very
bad.
Yeah,
That's
Not zero.
not bad.
yeah. But
I don't have any coins to donate to you to begin with.
But it was experiment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a very exciting experiment because we got featured in a lot of articles, right? Because right now I'm still the only one and first one. But it's not easy because because there's a lot of regulatory hoops you need to jump through, and then they gave us a hard time. So in the end, we couldn't even use that money. We have to just
really?
we have to buy something and then count it as a physical donation, not as a actually crypto donation.
That sucks.
What was blocking that? What was behind that?
The very strict, campaign donation laws, right, in Taiwan. So you can donate like money, you can donate goods, but when we ask the 监察院, the control yuan, the audit, the auditor, the regulating body for these donations, they have no idea. I mean, this is
What is Bitcoin, right?
Because it's virtual.
Because one of the things is that we cannot accept foreign donations.
Oh,
Right. So
okay.
when I say Bitcoin and then it's a digital purse, then say, how do you know it's not from a foreign donor? And so on and so forth. So, but I just say, but we can accept anybody that drop $1,000 on there and not give us, because if it's under $10,000, you don't need to give us your names, right?
Yeah.
You can, But if
Anonymous donations.
Exactly, anonymous donations under 10,000 Taiwan dollars. But if I accept under $10,000 crypto donations, why not? Why can't I take it? So I was having some fun, arguing back and forth.
Do you know any American candidates taking Bitcoin donations?
Yeah, there was a couple.
Yeah, there was
I
some.
forgot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it
That's
was fun.
interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting.
But when was this? What year?
2018. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the regulatory, like, was Bitcoin, 'cause I know right now in Taiwan, Bitcoin is like kind of legal, but it's not really legal. Like it's in a gray area still.
Yeah, I mean,
It was illegal for a while, right?
yeah, I actually didn't follow that law, but there's exchange, so I assume it's gotta be legal.
Yeah.
Right. So
You can trade with these currencies in Taiwan. now.
Okay.
So they are legal.
Okay.
yeah, they're legal. Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, it's
You can use it to buy coffee.
Yeah. Or beer, right?
There was one place, I forgot the street, but you could buy ice cream for Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good
Taipei,
ice cream.
right?
Yes. Yeah, it was like the gelato, like the Italian ice cream, the really good stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was just like 2014. I bought all my friends ice cream in Bitcoin. Now that Bitcoin's probably worth like $10,000, but
That's some expensive ice cream.
but then they stopped taking it because I think it was like 2015 or 16. The government said no more Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it seems like it's been flipping back and forth quite a bit.
Yeah. But since the exchange, the Max coin or my coin, right? I mean, I think things turn. Yeah,
Yeah,
It's legit now.
that's good.
I think so.
Yeah. So, what do you think the West can learn from Taiwan?
In which respect? I mean, a lot. Just look at the
Open data, open source, or collaboration, online collaboration.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I can get a bit more specific.
Right,
So, so you said that Taiwanese don't trust the government.
right.
Like on my spectrum, like
Yeah. I mean, Taiwan standards. Yeah.
so my question to you would be, I mean, you're probably going to reject my question, but my question is, why do the Taiwanese trust the government, and what can America do that allows for the rebuilding of this trust in the people?
Right. I mean, because in America, it's not universally that people don't trust the government, right? So there's a divide, and on one side, the people, they don't want to trust government. They think the government is going to come for their guns and all that. But on the other side, people trust government to provide healthcare, to provide, social security, provide, protection. So, I mean, and I'm not going to get into, the fight between the left and right. But if you look at Taiwan's example, we trust the government conditionally, right? And the level that we trust the government is dependent upon the degree of democracy that's happening in Taiwan, right? So back in the 1980s, 90s, where we enjoy very little democracy, people don't trust governments. They protest. They call for reforms and all that. But as the years progressed, and then people got more and more of their rights. They start to pitch in their share of responsibilities, and then they start to trust that the government have their interest. So I think it's a gradual process. It's not overnight. So yeah.
Well, are there any lessons that you think that other countries can learn to sort of regain our trust from misinformation? So, you and I both studied science, and at least I feel that there's a huge rejection of science in America right now. I see it a little bit in Europe, but not as strong as in America. And like Taiwan seems to be okay. Like, your CDC person is like a celebrity here right now.
Right.
People listen to him.
Yes.
Whereas, so what are some tools? What are some practices that you feel Taiwan was able to get right?
Thing is, if you look at the pandemic response in Taiwan, especially this year, you see that across the political spectrum, people actually come together, and then they actually listen to the government. Of course, there's always going to be some fringe conspiracy theories, but people, trust the government is going to take care of them, right? So when government say put on mask, we put on masks. But things are not so in the U.S., in some countries. So if you want to restore, trust in government, you definitely have to make sure you actually vote, good people into office, right? So make sure you trust that people who comes into the office and entrust things they say. And then, so when they tell you to do something, you actually are more, inclined to do it.
But do you feel that the people that were in power in Taiwan, they have some different trust in science than, say, America or the West does? Like, is there a difference there that you feel, and is there any sort of reason why that's the case that you know of? I mean, you've lived in New York, you lived here. What's the difference to you?
Well, if I have to be honest, I I have to say that I have to point that in U.S., because I see firsthand, that there's a degrading of people's trust in science because of the fundamental beliefs in some of the religious groups. So, unfortunately, we don't have that in Taiwan, right? Our religious groups, the most influential ones, the Buddhists and then the Taoists, they don't fight with science. Fortunately.
It's interesting. So like from a societal level, there's nobody that has beef with scientists.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So they don't deny climate change.
Yeah.
They don't deny the vaccines work. Yeah, so it's something that is Taiwan's pretty lucky about, I think. Yeah.
Maybe it is just luck, right? I mean,
it is just luck, yeah. Or it's just the way that our religions are not that aggressive, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just because in our past, the government hasn't prosecuted religions before, so they don't have a need to, fight. Yeah, that's my point, though. So I don't want to pick a fight with the religious people, but yeah, that's what I think.
I was just curious, like what Taiwan did, such that if a politician says do something that was based in science, people here are like, oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in America, they're like. No, like, I mean, I was talking with somebody on our team about like the anti-vaxxers and flat Earth, and like you can go over Google and you can find all of this stuff on YouTube and watch hours and hours and hours of people talking and giving all of these lectures on why the Earth is flat.
Yeah. I saw that too.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, but on the other hand, it's not surprising, right?
But this wouldn't work in Taiwan. Like, there's no way Taiwanese would accept this, right?
Right. I mean,
so,
but what?
People respect well-educated people. I'm not going to say elite. I think like 30 years ago, people really respect and obey to elite. They conform to elite. But right now, not that much so. But still, I think education is a luxury. Education is privilege. It's never a basic right in Taiwan or in other countries. So being able to receive education is a privilege. And then people would think that, when I was little, all of the teachers would say, when you receive better education, you have to think about how to bring public good to the society. You have to be a good person, and then you have to try to do something nice for everyone. They kind of give you a very high expectation because you're one of the lucky few who can receive better education. So you better think about what you're going to do with all the knowledge earned. And I think in Taiwan we still think that since the scientists, they're very well educated, and then they know something that we don't know. They know more about the virus. They know more about the vaccines, or they know more about public hygiene. Then what is the benefit for them if we're killed or if we're all dead because of this pandemic, right?
Yeah, that's good logic. But I think that logic is based on you trust your government, that there is no benefit for you to die. Whereas like a lot of people in America, we think that the government is going to, they're out to get
Let us die.
Yeah. We have to defend them.
Yeah, I mean, since 2016, I've been, studying really a lot about, the backlash against elites and all that, and the Trumpism. And so, yeah, it's very interesting. So,
but Taiwan doesn't have this, right?
No, I mean, if you look at, in 2018, the rise of Hanguoyu, you can actually see some, sniffs of that in that movement, right? The backlash against elites, against establishment, anti-intellectualism, and all that. So we can draw a lot of parallels there. But yeah,
I know. Okay, so education also contributes to income equality.
Okay.
Yeah, when you receive more education or higher education, it's more likely that you become richer or you become better paid. So people do hold hostility against those who are better educated.
Even in Taiwan?
Yes. Yes. So I think the entire philosophy that Han Guoyu was creating was that those people who are making more money doesn't understand what our life is like as a blue collar level worker. He's creating that distance that you don't know anything about us. You have no idea what kind of life we're living. You have no idea.
Who was this guy? Sorry.
Han Guoyu.
Yeah.
Tell him.
So Han Guoyu is he was a KMT Kuomintang, kind of old guard, but then he kind of like faded away for many years. But then in 2018, he just surfaced and then ran a campaign in Kaohsiung that nobody thought he was gonna win. But because Kaohsiung, if you understand, it's like a major stronghold of a DPP. So it's very green. So Kuomintang had traditionally had no chance there. But in 2018, I mean, he just had a message that is very populist. It just echoes with like everyday people. So people, just like in 2016 with Trump, they liked him. They liked what he was saying. They like his demeanor. They like his frivolous attitudes toward the establishment. So they gave him a chance and then voted him to the mayor of Kaohsiung. So that surprised a lot of people, just like 2016. So yeah, so that's Han Guoyu. But then he got too greedy. He jump into the 2020 presidential campaign before barely serving 2 years as a mayor. So Taiwanese rejected him, thankfully.
Yeah.
But in his campaign, you can see a lot of parallels with the campaign that Trump is running, and that's the kind of like anti-elite elite, and then that kind of message.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. But throughout the world, there's a lot of populist uprisings, in Europe, in South America, and so it's probably a trend.
So Taiwan has these two parties. America, of course, has two parties. And there's been a number of efforts to try to get a third one going in America, and it never really works. And you were part of a third party.
Right. Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about this party and how come you were involved with it? Like, what did you see in it?
Sure. I mean, so I was part of the New Power Party. So it was a party formed in 2014 after the Sunflower Movement in Taiwan. So Sunflower Movement is one of the major student movements in Taiwan, where a group of students occupied our parliament and forced retreat of KMT government to sign a major treaty with China. Because right at that time, the KMT-led government was moving very close to China, and then the people rejected that. So after the movement, a lot of people, gathered together and then formed this New Power Party. So actually carry the mantle of the movement, forward. And then, so...
Can I slow you for a second? So
Yeah.
Can you explain more about like this party? Like what was their platform? What did they feel was not being addressed by the existing two parties? And like how popular did they get?
Yeah, I mean, so because the Sunflower Movement was mostly championed by young people, so this party's platform is geared toward young people as well. And then if you understand young people in Taiwan, we feel left out by both parties, right? Because, well, of course, the KMT is the very old party coming from China. And also the DPP, although it's more democracy-oriented, it's getting old. The message is getting old. And they are actually, on the ideological spectrum, is more to the right? So they
As in kind of conservative, you mean?
Right,
Or,
right. It's kind of conservative, especially on social issues, right?
Okay.
So if you think about young people, we support gay rights, we support labor rights and all that. So when the New Power Party forms, that naturally the platform, right? So we support the same-sex marriage, labor rights, and we support the on the national identity. We are not calling for Taiwanese independence, but we call it as a normalization of our state. So we don't want to be independent because we feel we're already an independent country. We have our own government, our own army. We don't need to be independent, but we need to normalize. We don't want to be called as ROC, Republic of China, anymore. We want to be called as Taiwan. We have our own constitution because right now, our constitution still has jurisdiction over China.
oh,
Even Mongolia.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so that's why we need to normalize that and then get rid of all that. We just want a jurisdiction over Taiwan and Penghu and Jinmen-Maju. So that's the normalization part. So that's what the party champions.
So if two companies wanted to sign a contract together, could they pick jurisdiction of the contract in Mongolia?
Yeah, they can do that, but it's probably not going to work. So that's why a lot of absurdities in the ROC constitution. So a lot of them. So yeah, that's why this party is very attractive to young people, and I was one of them, being very attracted to this party. And also, there's a lot of people with high star powers in the party, right? You have Freddie Lim, you have Huang Guochang, you have Hong Tse-yong, who basically started a whole movement because she was, championing her brother who died in the military due to abuses. And also you have Qiu Xianzi and then a lot of people. So their image of, a vibrant, active, just, they champion, for justice, human rights. So, yeah, so I was drawn into the party right away. So at that time I was still in the New Yorks, but so in 2018, the leader of the party, Freddie Lim, called on me to come back and then join the party and then run for, city council. I said yes. So that's why I became.
What was it about city council that you felt made sense?
Well, actually, it didn't make sense. I know nothing about local politics.
Really?
I knew nothing about city councils. But hey, it's Freddie Lim. I don't know how much you know.
I don't know anything about it.
Well, Freddie Lim is
It's a rock, a metal.
It's a metal band. He's a
Yeah.
vocalist of a very prominent international metal band called Sonic.
Okay.
And then he's got tattoos over his arm
Okay.
and then long hair. But then in
It's very
2016,
gothic.
yeah, and in 2016 he won a seat in Parliament, so he's very first rock star in Parliament. I mean, who's not gonna love that? So and I was a fan because if you remember, I'm a guitarist. I was in rock band, so I knew Donnie in high school. So I was a fan of Donnie for like 20 years before he called on me.
So he said, "Hey, come back and run for some local city."
Yeah, when he called me in my New York apartment to say, "Can you come back?" and then I have his poster hanging on my wall.
Oh my God, it's like singing with him on the stage.
Yeah, so there's no resistance. So I just say, okay, fine, whatever. So it is what it is. And I came back and I ran, but it was a very fulfilling experience, right?
So you said that you ultimately didn't win, right?
I didn't win because
If you could go back and do it again,
if I could go back, I definitely.
What would you do differently?
I definitely would win because I knew nothing about campaigns. I knew nothing about, so I did what I was told to do. But yeah, for example, I didn't even run any polls, right? Because I just thought I don't know, I don't trust polls. But actually, polls are very important. So, I mean, I was very close because I had a good platform, but back then I had a disadvantage is that I was running against Gao Jiayu. But if you know who she's like the most popular politician in Taipei.
oh,
I mean, when we were running for city council, we just need about 12,000 votes.
okay.
She got about 30,000.
Oh, wow.
And her target audience is about the same as me, right? So we are young people and then geeks, engineers. So
Musicians.
So she got all my votes, so I lost anyway. But that's not the real reason. But anyway, I if I could do it again, I probably.
So this Freddie guy must have really thought a lot of you because he put you up against this woman who's like super kick ass. Huh?
Well, now because this woman is running in the same district, that's why Freddie couldn't pick a girl, right? Because it wouldn't make sense. So he picked me, but still, it's hard either way. Yeah, the district is not really friendly toward. I mean,
内湖and Nangang.
Yeah,
These are like techie districts.
and traditionally very blue, very KMT oriented. So, but yeah, I mean, I still had a good run. I mean, a first timer like me, I got 8,000 plus votes. It's still something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you could do it again, like what would you change?
If I could do it again, I would have. I would have. Because when I just got into the campaign, I knew nobody.
Okay.
I didn't even grow up in Neihu and Nangang. I grew up in Da'an and Xinyi. So I knew nothing about the district. I knew nobody. So if I could do it again, I could make sure I
Get connected.
get connected and build a bigger base before I actually, do something. Yes.
So this third party, what's going on with it now? Is it still in existence? Is it still relevant?
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I mean, it's well, So to update the story, I actually left the party last year, because last year was the presidential campaign, right? So I not only joined the party, I actually won the seat in the committee, in the so-called, how do you call that? The steering committee of the party. So it's the highest decision-making body of the party. So I was one of the members. So we will have to discuss if our party is going to support a president, right, Tsai Ing-wen. Mm-hmm. But then most of the people, they say no. Right? They didn't want to support Tsai Ing-wen so early, right, because they want to keep the distance because, it's a three-way, party. You don't want to get too close with another one. But to me, the most important thing is Taiwan. And Tsai Ing-wen, her vision represents a brighter future for Taiwan that's distant from China, all that influence and all that bullying, right? And as opposed to Han Kuo-yu, the other opponent who is championing, a close relationship with China, even, getting, a lot of economic trades, which kind of jeopardize Taiwan's independence. So I was fighting, I was, heatedly debating, within the party that I think we should actually support, the incumbent, the president. But no, that's not the case. So I just decided, no, I cannot, no longer be with this party. Yes.
How difficult it is to build a third party in an environment where there are two strong parties?
It's extremely difficult. That's why, the New Power Party, this third party came onto the scene by accident, right? It's the accident of the Sunflower Movement. And it's probably not going to happen again. So because of the movement, there's a lot of energy and a lot of resources pulled together to actually form this party. But I don't think that's going to happen again in the near future. So that's why, so although I feel really bad about, this party not being, more, Taiwan-centric, but we still, like to work together. So it's right now, although I'm officially, partyless, so it's 无党, so it's no party registration. But right now we're still working on a lot of issues side by side.
Are you still interested in politics?
Tangentially, so I still write a lot of articles, for policies and all that, and I also pay attention to politics. But not sure if we're gonna run again in the near future. I may or may not, depending on where I need to I'm needed or where the things can happen. So, but still, once you get into it, there's just no leaving. Say, I see you later. I'm go back to tech. So it's probably not gonna happen. So I'm still here. A lot of politicians still come to me for consultations, for advice. So I'm happy where I am. Yeah.
If you won, what would you want to do in the city council? What
yeah.
kind of reforms?
Yeah, because when I was running my campaign, I had a lot of policies, right? So, but number one is definitely open government, open data, right? So I would have made sure that the Taipei government is pretty open, and also I will make sure that the government has a policy that's friendly to young people, especially for startups and people who want to create their own business, right? Right now, so young Taiwanese are very actually in a bind right now. Is that if they work for some major company, they don't get paid enough. They receive very little wage for long working hours, but they cannot leave because the environment for them to start their own business is not very friendly at all. So right now, I actually started my own business. I have a software engineering teams of engineers building on a platform. But when I go to the bank, they just look at me like I'm a joke. I'm like a small company. They don't want to do business with me. And when I go to some agencies, if they don't know me well, they just look down upon such as startups. So Taiwan has this environment that is not very friendly to young people who want to make their own. So if I want my seat in city council, I will champion the policies that's going to help in this respect. Yes.
Is there anything else that we didn't ask you that you think we should be asking you? I'm curious, like kind of what you're doing now. You're sort of touching on that a bit, but is there anything else that like you'd like to share with our listeners?
Let's see. I think everything is, just I say, I'm also on running my own business. We're building a software platform. Although we are in stealth mode, so we cannot.
I was going to ask you
what does it do?
But still, any engineers who need a job is welcome to talk to me. So,
how should they find you online?
Yeah, I can find me on Twitter at Hsiao A Taipei. So it's Hsiao Hsiao A Taipei. Or on Facebook, Hsiao Xin Hsiao, or I have a fan page, Hsiao Xin Sen. So just
what kind of engineers are you looking for?
Software engineers, so front end, back end, or even cloud engineers. Yeah.
Is remote okay?
Remote is mostly okay, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have a lot of listeners that are not in Taiwan.
Oh. I don't know if I could afford overseas wage, but we should talk. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to get the message out.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck. I think this stuff, like your journey of trying to figure out how to make government a more open, participatory thing is really admirable.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that, because since I'm back, I might, make the most out of it, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you guys.
Great.
Thanks
Okay.
for coming.
All right. See ya.